Imagine waking up to find your bank account grew while you were fast asleep. Most people think this kind of financial freedom is a myth reserved for the lucky few. The reality is far simpler than you have been led to believe. I have spent years perfecting a framework called digital leverage to turn minimal effort into consistent wealth. Today, I am revealing the top 3 strategies that are quietly changing lives for absolute beginners. Forget everything you thought you knew about earning and prepare for a total shift in perspective. This shift starts by acknowledging the fundamental flaw in how we were taught to earn a living. For decades, the standard blueprint has been to trade your most precious resource for a fixed hourly rate. It is a linear path that keeps your income capped and your freedom restricted. You show up, you work hard, and you get paid exactly for the hours you put in. If you stop working for even a single day, the money stops flowing immediately. This cycle creates a constant state of financial anxiety where you are always one paycheck away from a crisis. I remember sitting at a desk feeling like a cog in a massive machine that never stopped turning. No matter how much effort I invested, the rewards stayed the same while the cost of living kept rising. It became clear that simply working harder was not the solution to achieving true wealth. The breakthrough happened when I looked at how the modern economy actually functions today. We are living in a unique era where physical boundaries no longer dictate your earning potential. The internet has leveled the playing field for anyone with a laptop and a bit of curiosity. In the past, building a business required massive capital, physical storefronts, and a large team of employees. You had to take enormous risks just to get your foot in the door. Today, those old barriers have crumbled, replaced by digital systems that run around the clock. Many beginners still believe they need a degree in computer science or a huge bank account to start. This misconception keeps millions of talented people stuck in jobs they hate. The truth is that the tools you need are already at your fingertips and often completely free to use. Digital leverage is not about working more hours but about making your work more effective. It involves creating assets once that continue to provide value to others long after the initial task is finished. This is the fundamental difference between a traditional job and a scalable digital empire. Before we dive into the specific strategies, you must understand the environment we are operating in. The digital world never sleeps, and it does not care about your background or your previous failures. It only rewards those who understand how to position themselves within these new systems. For decades, the standard path involved trading every hour of your life for a fixed paycheck. This outdated model relies on physical presence and manual labor, which inherently limits your earning potential. We are now witnessing a massive shift where the traditional rules of the economy no longer apply. Think about the traditional gatekeepers who used to control access to wealth and information. You once needed massive capital, a prestigious degree, or a powerful network just to get a foot in the door. Today, those barriers have crumbled, replaced by open-source tools and global connectivity. This transformation did not happen overnight, but it accelerated faster than anyone predicted. The rise of the creator economy and automated platforms has leveled the playing field for everyone. Now, an individual in a home office can compete with a multinational corporation using the same digital infrastructure. Despite these opportunities, most people remain stuck in a cycle of endless scrolling and passive consumption. They see the success of others but fail to recognize the underlying mechanics that make it possible. Understanding these mechanics is the first step toward breaking free from the time for money trap. Digital leverage works because software and content do not require a salary or sleep to keep performing. Once you upload a file or launch an automated system, it works for you 24 hours a day. This is the hidden engine that powers the world's most successful modern entrepreneurs. I did not start with a massive budget or a team of experts behind me. I began by identifying the exact points where a small amount of input could generate a massive output. These are the same entry points I am about to show you so you can begin your own journey. The realization that the old system was broken was not just a theory for me. It became a harsh reality during a week when everything I thought was stable suddenly collapsed. I found myself staring at a bank balance that did not reflect the thousands of hours I had sacrificed. One Tuesday morning, the company I worked for announced a massive restructuring that put my entire future at risk. I realized that my financial security was entirely in the hands of people who did not even know my name. This was the moment the illusion of safety finally shattered for good. I spent the next few nights scouring the internet for a way out of this cycle. Every search led to the same get-rich-quick schemes that promised the world but delivered nothing. The frustration was overwhelming as I tried to bridge the gap between my current struggle and the freedom I craved. Then I stumbled upon a small community of creators who were doing things differently. They were not just selling products, they were building automated systems that solved real problems for people. It was my first real glimpse into how the digital leverage framework actually operated in the wild. I decided to test one of these strategies with the little time and energy I had left. It felt like a massive gamble because I was stepping into a world I did not fully understand yet. The fear of failure was loud, but the fear of staying stuck was even louder. My first attempt was a complete disaster that resulted in 0 views and $0 earned. I had followed the steps, but I was still thinking like an employee instead of an owner. This failure forced me to look deeper into the mechanics of how digital assets actually gain momentum. Instead of giving up, I analyzed why the system had not worked and made a crucial adjustment. I stopped trying to force a sale and started focusing on building a bridge between a specific problem and a digital solution. This pivot changed the way I viewed every interaction on the internet from that day forward. A few days later, I checked my dashboard and saw a notification that changed everything. It was a small amount of money, but it was earned while I was away from my computer. The proof of concept was finally there, and there was no turning back to the old way of living. That single notification shattered my old belief that wealth required my constant physical presence. I realized that if I could earn $5 while sleeping, I could eventually earn $5,000. The barrier was never my lack of effort, but the outdated systems I had been forced to follow. The contrast between these digital wins and my daily grind quickly became unbearable. I was living in two worlds, one that offered infinite scalability and another that demanded my time for a flat fee. This tension reached a breaking point where I had to choose between comfortable security and true autonomy. I decided to stop dabbling and commit fully to the digital leverage framework. This was no longer just a side experiment, it was a complete overhaul of my financial identity. I stopped asking for permission to be successful and started building the infrastructure for my own freedom. This total shift in perspective led me to identify 3 specific entry points that any beginner can use today. These methods bypass the traditional gatekeepers and tap directly into the global digital economy. It is time to move past the theory and look at the exact blueprints that make this possible. I jumped headfirst into my first strategy, convinced that the sheer volume of my effort would guarantee immediate success. I spent nights building out what I thought was a perfect affiliate funnel, meticulously choosing products I had never even used. My hypothesis was simple: if I put enough links in front of enough people, the math would eventually work in my favor. Reality hit hard when the traffic numbers stayed at a flat 0 for the first 2 weeks. I refreshed my analytics page every hour, hoping for a spike that never actually came. It felt like I was shouting into a digital void where no one was listening, and my initial excitement began to sour into deep doubt. During this time, I shared my progress with a few close friends who still held traditional 9-to-5 mindsets. They looked at my empty dashboard and suggested I stop wasting time on internet pipe dreams to focus on my actual career. Their skepticism acted like a heavy weight, making every hour spent at the keyboard feel like a foolish gamble. I pivoted my approach and started creating content, thinking that quantity was the secret key to the algorithm. I churned out dozens of low-quality posts and videos, hoping that one of them would magically go viral and solve my problems. Instead of growth, I only found exhaustion and a growing sense of frustration with the digital platforms I was trying to master. Just as I thought I was gaining a tiny bit of momentum, the technical barriers started to pile up. My website crashed during a minor update, and I spent an entire weekend trying to fix code I did not understand. These obstacles felt like the universe was testing my resolve, trying to push me back into the safety of my old life. I realized that my initial hypothesis was fundamentally flawed because I was chasing metrics instead of providing actual value. I had been treating the digital world as a vending machine rather than an ecosystem built on trust and relevance. This discovery was painful, but it forced me to strip away the vanity and look at the core of what people actually wanted. In an online forum, I connected with a seasoned creator who pointed out that I was building on sand. He explained that without a clear bridge between the audience's pain and my solution, I was just adding to the noise. This conversation was a turning point that made me stop the frantic activity and start thinking strategically for the first time. I decided to scrap my broad, generic approach and focus on one specific niche where I could actually make an impact. It meant admitting that my first few months were essentially a series of expensive lessons in what not to do. This was the moment I stopped acting like a desperate amateur and started behaving like a professional builder. I poured my energy into building a digital product that I believed would solve a massive problem. I spent nights refining the details and ensuring the delivery system was seamless. But when I finally hit the launch button, the silence from the market was deafening. A fellow entrepreneur looked at my data and pointed out a glaring flaw in my strategy. He showed me that a great product is invisible without a consistent stream of targeted attention. This realization forced me to confront the reality that I was still missing a vital piece of the leverage puzzle. I tried to bridge this gap by experimenting with complex advertising funnels that I barely understood. Each dollar I spent felt like a high-stakes gamble with my dwindling savings. The learning curve was steeper than I anticipated, and the technical glitches began to pile up. Amidst the frustration, I noticed a small pattern in the few clicks I was actually receiving. People weren't looking for a complex solution, they wanted a simple, repeatable process they could trust. This small spark of data gave me the clarity I needed to stop guessing and start scaling. This clarity forced me to confront the biggest lie in the passive income world. Most people think they need a massive audience or a complex web of products to succeed. I realized that complexity is actually the enemy of scale and the primary reason most beginners quit before they see a single cent. I had to unlearn the idea that more hours spent at my desk equaled more money in my pocket. In the digital economy, the market does not pay for your effort, it pays for the systems you leave behind. This shift was uncomfortable because it challenged everything I had been taught about the value of a hard day's work. I began to analyze the digital leverage framework through a much sharper lens. It was not about finding a magic button, but about identifying where the most impact could be made with the least amount of friction. I stopped looking for shortcuts and started looking for the structural weaknesses in traditional income models. Take the first strategy one attempted, which was affiliate marketing. I had been treating it like a numbers game, blasting links to anyone who would listen. I realized that true leverage comes from positioning yourself as a trusted filter in an era of infinite information. The deeper I went, the more I realized the real battle was happening inside my own head. I was constantly fighting the urge to revert to my old habits of trading time for money. Every time a new obstacle appeared, my brain tried to convince me that the traditional path was safer and more predictable. I started comparing the old system of linear growth with the new reality of exponential digital assets. In a job, your income is capped by the hours in a day and the whims of a boss. With digital leverage, your potential is only limited by the quality of the systems you build and the problems you solve. I spent hours investigating why some creators were making millions while others were struggling to buy a coffee. The difference was not talent or luck, it was their ability to detach their income from their physical presence. They were not just working, they were building machines that worked for them around the clock. This investigation led me to a brutal realization about the 3 strategies I was developing. If I did not master the art of capturing and directing attention, even the best product in the world would remain invisible. It was time to stop playing defense and start aggressively building the infrastructure that would finally break my financial chains. This infrastructure required me to look at the market through a lens of extreme efficiency. I stopped viewing my time as a commodity to be sold and started seeing it as capital to be invested. Every hour spent on a manual task was a theft from my future freedom. I began dissecting the exact mechanics of how digital assets compound over time. The secret was not in the complexity of the tools, but in the simplicity of the user journey. I realized that the most successful systems were those that removed every possible friction point for the audience. The traditional mindset tells you to trade your life for a paycheck, but the digital economy rewards those who create value once and distribute it infinitely. I had to confront the internal fear that doing less manual work meant I was being lazy. In reality, I was finally learning how to work with the grain of the internet instead of against it. This deep dive into the mechanics of leverage allowed me to distill everything into 3 core pillars. These are not just theories, they are the battle-tested blueprints that transformed my struggle into a scalable engine. It was time to stop analyzing and start deploying the first of these life-changing strategies. I launched the first strategy with everything I had left in the tank. I followed the blueprint to the letter, expecting the floodgates of passive income to finally swing wide open. For a few brief moments, I truly believed I had finally cracked the code to financial freedom. But the results were far from the explosion I had envisioned. Instead of a surge, I saw a trickle of engagement that barely covered my basic software costs. It felt like I had reached the end of the road, and the engine I built was simply running out of steam. I sat in front of my screen, staring at the stagnant numbers while the silence of my office became deafening. All the talk of digital leverage and passive systems started to sound like a cruel joke I had played on myself. I was ready to pack it all in and accept that maybe I just wasn't cut out for this world. I began drafting an email to my old boss, asking if my previous position was still available. The dream of escaping the rat race felt like a distant memory that was fading faster than my bank balance. I had given it my best shot, and it seemed my best just wasn't enough to move the needle. I started deleting the folders and canceling the subscriptions that had defined my life for months. Each click felt like a heavy admission of defeat, a final acknowledgement that the traditional path was my only reality. I told myself that at least I had tried, even if the outcome was a total collapse of my ambitions. I looked at the 3 pillars I had so carefully constructed and saw only a pile of digital scrap metal. The motivational quotes and the grand theories didn't matter when the reality of zero growth stared me in the face. I was prepared to walk away and never look back at a keyboard again. Just as I was about to hit the final delete key, a single notification popped up on my dashboard that stopped me cold. It wasn't a sale or a massive spike in traffic, but a specific type of feedback from a total stranger. They pointed out one tiny, overlooked detail that I had completely ignored in my rush to scale. I realized that I hadn't failed because the strategies were wrong, but because I was missing the invisible glue that holds them together. There was a hidden layer to the digital leverage framework that I hadn't even considered until this very second. This wasn't the end of the story, it was the beginning of a much more dangerous game. I sat in the silence of my office, watching the cursor blink like a heartbeat on a dying patient. Every system I had painstakingly built felt like a house of cards waiting for the final gust of wind. I was ready to walk away and admit that the critics were right about my digital pipe dreams. I began closing the tabs that had been my entire world for months, feeling a strange sense of hollow relief. The dream of financial freedom felt like a cruel joke I had played on myself while my savings slowly evaporated. It seemed easier to return to the safety of a predictable paycheck and a boss who told me exactly what my time was worth. But as my finger hovered over the power button, that stranger's comment echoed in my mind with a sudden, piercing clarity. I started looking at my data again, but this time I wasn't looking for profit, I was looking for the leak. I realized I had been trying to build a skyscraper while completely ignoring the structural integrity of the ground beneath it. The missing piece wasn't a better funnel or a more expensive ad campaign, it was the psychological bridge of trust one had failed to build. I had finally discovered the hidden switch that transforms a cold system into a living, breathing engine of growth. This wasn't just a small correction, it was the master key that would finally unlock everything I had been chasing. I stopped looking at the numbers and started looking at the people behind the screens. That missing bridge of trust was the realization that every digital asset must solve a human problem before it generates a single cent. I finally understood that leverage isn't just about automation, it's about providing massive value upfront without asking for anything in return. This led me to the first pillar of my framework, high-ticket curation through strategic affiliate partnerships. Instead of spamming links, I positioned myself as the ultimate filter for a specific, high-value niche. I stopped selling products and started providing the clarity that my audience was desperately searching for in a noisy market. The secret was in the bridge I built between their pain and the solution I recommended. By creating a single, high-quality resource that lived forever on the internet, I transformed a one-time effort into a permanent trust-building machine. This wasn't just marketing, it was the structural integrity I had been missing all along. Then came the second strategy, the micro-solution asset. I realized that people don't want complex courses, they want a specific tool that solves a specific headache right now. I built simple, high-leverage templates that required zero maintenance once they were live on the platform. These digital tools became my silent workers, operating in the background while I focused on higher-level growth. Because I had removed every friction point, the user journey became a seamless slide from problem to resolution. This is where the exponential growth finally started to manifest in my dashboard. The third and final strategy was the content multiplier, where I leveraged existing platforms to distribute my message. I stopped trying to build my own island and started building bridges to where the attention already existed. By tapping into established ecosystems, I gained access to a global audience without spending a dime on advertising. These three strategies finally clicked into place, forming a self-sustaining engine of digital leverage. I wasn't just running three separate businesses, I was managing a unified system where each part fed the others. The psychological bridge of trust was the current that powered the entire machine. Suddenly, the stagnant numbers on my screen began to vibrate with new life. The trickle turned into a steady stream, and then, finally, into the surge I had dreamed of for years. I wasn't trading my hours for dollars anymore. I was watching the digital infrastructure I built finally break my financial chains. The first strategy, value-driven affiliate marketing, evolved from a desperate search for clicks into a sophisticated engine of authority. By positioning myself as the ultimate filter, I turned simple recommendations into a recurring revenue stream that required zero manual intervention. The system was finally breathing on its own, delivering results while I focused on the bigger picture. My digital products and automated content assets followed suit, creating a secondary layer of unstoppable momentum. Every asset I launched acted as a permanent employee that never slept, never complained, and never stopped selling. The compounding effect of these combined forces created a financial gravity that pulled success toward me automatically. This was the ultimate realization of the digital leverage framework, where effort is decoupled from reward. I had successfully built a bridge between my initial work and a future of infinite scalability. The three pillars were no longer just concepts, they were the structural foundation of a new, liberated reality. The noise of the traditional world faded away as the clarity of this new system took full control. I had replaced the uncertainty of the grind with the precision of a well-oiled digital machine. The promise was fulfilled, the chains were broken, and the path to true passive income was finally wide open. That open path led me to a life where my schedule is finally my own. This system didn't just fix my finances, it completely transformed my relationship with time and freedom. I no longer work to survive, but rather to expand the boundaries of what these digital assets can achieve. Today, the digital leverage framework stands as a permanent engine that fuels my lifestyle without constant supervision. Each of the three pillars has grown into a self-sustaining ecosystem that thrives on the trust I've built with my audience. This is the ultimate reward for choosing strategy over sheer exhaustion. The blueprint is now in your hands, and the barriers to entry have never been lower than they are right now. You have the opportunity to stop being a cog in someone else's machine and start building your own empire. The only question left is whether you are ready to flip the switch on your own financial future. While these three strategies provide the foundation, there is a secret fourth pillar that accelerates everything even further. Understanding how to reinvest these initial wins is what separates the temporary earners from the truly wealthy. Join me in the next session where we dive deep into the high-velocity scaling techniques that change the game forever.